to Nightmares and Smiles. Today I'm going to be sharing with you, finally, the books that changed my life. These are books that I've talked about before, books that I just kind of like obsess over. I was originally going to film my top 10 favorite books of all times, but I didn't feel like favorite was a strong enough word to sort of express how I feel about some of these books. All these books that I'm about to share with you, I think I have like 8 of them here, just absolutely changed my life for the better. I mean, I'm not like a criminal now because of these books. These are all things that have affected my life positively. These are just books that will always be like beyond #1 for me. They're just like on a cloud of their own. My children, well, all these books are my children, but these ones are like my special children. Oh, that sounds so horrible. You're not supposed to pick which children you like the best. Let's get into this because I'm sure I can go on and on about pretty much every single one of these books, but I'm gonna try and keep it short. But yeah, the first series, I've talked about it so much, it might be annoying right now to hear this again, but the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. Like, I can't even, like, this series, it changed my life. I read it when I started reading this series when I was 11. If you don't know what it's basically about a bunch of kids who are half human, half God. Every summer they go to this summer camp called Camp Half-Blood and they fight monsters and there's a million crazy things going on and it has to do with Greek mythology. There's actually a sequel series too that I've read and I'm just in love with, and it is called The Heroes of Olympus. It even starts mixing in Roman mythology and it's just this crazy, awesomely educational book series. Pretty much all the characters in the Percy Jackson series, they're all different, they're all weird, they all have some sort of problem they've had to deal with their whole lives, whether that be like ADHD or dyslexia, but they find out that all these things that make them different are actually signs that they're half God. Like, what third grader doesn't want to hear that all the problems that they're having and all the struggles that they're having just means they're part God? Like, who doesn't want to read something like that? The series just taught me how to just get through the tough times. I mean, it was really hard for me when I was younger. My parents, they separated when I was younger, and you know, this series taught me how to get through that. The characters in these books were constantly facing like a million problems that a 12-year-old really shouldn't be facing, like fighting demons and monsters and all these crazy things. I blame one book for sparking my hatred of reading, and that is Little House on the Prairie. Literally, our school had us read Little House on the Prairie every single year. It wasn't until my librarian introduced Percy Jackson that my view on life changed. I just saw things in a positive light and it was just easier for me to get through hard times, and I thank Percy Jackson for where I am today. Percy Jackson was my best friend and I felt closer to Percy Jackson and Annabeth and Grover and the whole gang than I did to actual people in that time of my life. Alrighty, moving on to the second book. This series is so amazing. The Shatter Me series. First of all, do not judge the book by its cover. That's the first thing I'm going to say. If I were to have judged this book by the covers, I probably wouldn't have even picked up the series. This series I read when I was in, I guess, one of like the saddest, most depressing points in my life. I was just in a really sad place. Honestly, I was just in a horrible like mindset where I just constantly felt like I was failing at everything even though my grades were fine and all of that kind of stuff. I was just really not feeling good. And anyways, I picked up this book and I had someone that I could relate to. The main character in this book, Juliet, she is locked up in this cell. First page is her describing her cell, and that's what I felt like. I felt like I was just in this cell. I felt like I was kind of just trapped in my own head, and the main character, she's trapped in her own head, and she's kind of convinced herself she's crazy, and all this crazy stuff happens. And you know, what I loved about this book was that it was so poetic, and I felt like it wasn't dramatic. You know, at that point in my life, like, I needed something like this. I needed something that was just poetic and that just explained exactly what I was thinking in words, because I personally couldn't put it in words. That was this book, and I just felt like I had a best friend who was going through the exact same thing that I was going through, and it was just like, oh. And of course, the love interest in this book just made me super happy. What's even better was, as I progressed through the series, I got to see this character become stronger, and it kind of inspired me, and it was just so motivating, this whole series. For some reason, just like the way Tara Mafi writes, it's like she writes on your soul. I know that sounds so dramatic and ridiculous, but honestly that's how it feels like, is that when she's writing this, it feels like she's writing it to me. And even though, you know, there's millions of people that have read the book. Next, you guys know what's next, don't you? Raven Boys! The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. First of all, I have to say, there's one more book coming out, The Raven King, and Maggie Stiefvater just released the cover of it, and it's so beautiful. There are 3 books, almost 4 books in this series. The 4th book's gonna be coming out in April of next year. This series is about a girl named Blue. She lives in this house with her mother and her aunts, and they're all psychics. Yes, psychics. And before reading the series, I honestly didn't read I've never read any book that actually was centered around, I guess, the main characters being psychic. But anyways, sadly, Blue is the only one in her family or the only female in her family, because the psychic gene apparently only runs in the women of the family. Anyway, so she's the only one who doesn't actually have psychic abilities, and she can only amplify the powers of her mother and her aunts and all of that. Even though the whole psychic thing is a big part of this book, it's so much bigger than that. Like, the magic, like, I don't even want to attempt to describe it, because it's just, there's so much and it's so different that it's hard to explain. There's nothing I can compare it to. This book just unlocked my imagination. I mean, I've never felt like my imagination was like kind of locked up, but it kind of just opened up my brain to different possibilities. It's really crazy and has a bunch of unrealistic stuff going on in it. I can't tell you why I like it. That's the thing with all of these books I'm sharing with you today. Is like, I can't tell you everything, all the reasons why I like it, because some of them I just can't put into words. It's just like a feeling that these books gave me when I needed them. Now, The Raven Boys is just, please read the book if you love magic, but you want to read something that has to do with magic, but it's a little more realistic and involves more day-to-day life stuff. I honestly, you have to read The Raven Boys. It is like amazing. The next book, you've heard it before, I've heard it before. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Honestly, I remember when I was reading this, I was going around and people were like, oh, what are you reading? I'm like, The Hunger Games, and they're like, what's The Hunger Games? I actually did not read it in the paperback form. I listened to the audiobook, and oh my god, okay. The Hunger Games was the first audiobook I ever listened to. I remember it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was sitting in my bed in my family's little apartment that we had, and I was just, again, I wasn't in like the best place of my life. I wasn't the happiest, and I just wanted to read something, and I had signed up for audible.com. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I just had signed up for Audible, and just to get that free book, because every time you sign up you get like a free book, and so I downloaded the audiobook of The Hunger Games, and I listened to it until like 3 in the morning the next day. I closed my eyes, so I had my eyes closed and like my headphones in, and I was listening to, I believe it was a female's voice to this Hunger Games, and it just, I felt like I was there with the characters. My heart was beating, and it was like this experience that I've never felt before in my life. I've learned so much from Katniss. I mean, everyone knows Katniss is like the ultimate female, like, power. Again, all these characters in these books just inspired me, and I just, Hunger Games for life. Alright, the next book, Divergent by Veronica Roth. Again, this was like almost identical to The Hunger Games for me. I mean, obviously the worlds are completely different, but as far as like the main character being just this strong woman, this strong female character, it inspired me so much. And I'm not going to go into detail about this book because I'm sure you already know what this book is about. It's everywhere. But yeah, our main character, Triss, she just goes through so much, and at the time when I read this, I was going through so much, and it was just like, we were just like, this book was like a soulmate for me. The last and final book that was just recently added to this list of life-changing books was Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. This entire series, this entire 3 months that I've just marathoned this book, it is just like, this character, Harry Potter, how did you do it? I'm still asking myself, even though it's like a few weeks since I finished the last book, how did this character survive? Like, how? This book mainly taught me to be fearless. That's the total word that I pulled out of this series was fearless. The quotes in this book, literally I have a whole journal full of quotes that I just took from Harry Potter, and this is definitely a series I will be rereading. I don't reread series often, but this series, Shatter Me, Percy Jackson, I could reread those series every single day of my life and never get sick of them. Honestly, all these books were almost like self-help books to me, as weird as it sounds, even though they're not self-help genre. They just helped me when I needed them. As always, thank you so much for watching. Keep reading, and bye.